implement India's native Digital Personal Data Protection Act will be challenging. Okay, why? Because India adopted digitization of personal information before anyone else. We had Aadhaar program started uh, pretty much early, right? So what I feel is, demystifying Digital Personal Data Protection Act at par with GDPR or any other privacy, directive is very important. And uh, so we will see how we manage it, right? So Tony, so we already have a question. Tony, does India follow GDPR? uh, Tony, the whole world has to follow GDPR, not with respect to your own citizens, but if you are dealing with a business out of EU, you will have to follow GDPR, right? So that means if you are processing or collecting any information which is related to PII or PHI, that means personally identifiable information or personal health information, be very sure that you are GDPR compliant. Otherwise, your business faces a pretty harsh risk. Okay, if you want to know, just go on Google and find out why CEO of Sundar Pichai was standing in front of EU GDPR Commission, right, and have paid massive fines. So targeted marketing is not allowed in uh, EU, right? It's a violation of GDPR. Consent very necessary. Okay, data exposure cannot happen. So there are a lot of very basic controls which you require, and it's not very difficult to understand. But at the same time, you have to understand that if you are any country, if you are a business in any country out of the world other than US, because US and EU have a data trans-border data sharing agreement. Other than EU and US, if you are in any part of the world, you have to, uh, you know, follow GDPR if you are dealing with privacy information of EU citizens, right, Tony? I hope you understand what I'm trying to say, right? So what today we want to discuss is today we will follow completely, demystifying or decoding your own GDPR, India's own GDPR. Okay,
Yeah,
it's
right,
it's
right.
called digital data, uh, you know, digital personal data protection. I myself get confused. I call it
Yeah,
sometimes.
it's kind of tricky to pronounce. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Let's call it DPDP. Let's call it DPDP for now. Yeah,
yeah. I'll try to get into the habit. Digital
yeah,
Personal Data Protection Act. So
yeah.
that does that mean that you will only protect digital form of your personal data? What about physical form of your personal data? If I'm collecting some information, personal information in physical form, does it absolve me of going out of this act? These are the legalities. You're saying only digital personal data should be protected. What about physical data protection? You don't want to
Right,
protect my physical information which is held by hospitals, right? The moment they digitize it, I come under the DPDP Act. What about my personal information in hospitals which can be accessed by anyone?
right, right,
So that means you have to keep an eye that it's not a privacy act.
right,
You have to understand it's not a privacy, it's not comparable to privacy system or privacy act. Okay. Now, if you look at privacy, right, what is the start point of privacy? The start point of privacy is somewhere around 1700s, right, where people started the societies, became more, and there were certain philosophers who started uh, giving the concept of uh, privacy, right? I'll not go into those details. What I will try to say is, if you look at US has its own privacy. As there's a constitutional right in US for privacy, right? It's called the Fourth Amendment. EU was very privacy centric, right? And it had its own privacy act, which became GDPR in 2018, and pretty it affects a lot of businesses. It's very difficult to do business in EU, to be frank. The moment the moment privacy information is involved, right? So in fact, I'm also worried at times, somebody from uh, EU comes to my portal. I do not collect any personal information. So I say,
Yes.
okay, fine. If my company knows, because see, for me to have different consent on different platforms is very difficult. So what I would like to say is that, you have to understand different privacy frameworks and different privacy requirements of all nations today. It become very complex. South Africa has its own privacy network requirements. Australia has its own privacy requirements. EU has its unique privacy requirements. US has its own privacy requirements. Middle East has its own privacy requirements. Australia has its own privacy requirements. Now, if you are a business sitting out of India, or you are a business in any part of the world, how do you tackle these different, you know, requirements? Now, that
Yeah.
is where you can have a baseline.
And
That's why you can have a
and
baseline.
yeah, and one more thing, sir. Along with that, there are again data sovereignty issues again as well, right?
Oh, there are a lot of data sovereignty issues, data
Yeah.
location issues,
Yeah.
data sharing issues, consent
Yeah.
issues,
Yeah.
collection limitations. So we will discuss threadbare all these issues once
Yeah.
we uh, what data can be classified as privacy? Anything which can expose anything private about you, right?
Yeah.
So right, we will discuss that, Ashish. What data can be classified as privacy?
Yeah.
So let's
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
understand. First, let's understand the objective of, Personal Digital Data Protection Act.
Right.
So understand that India's DPDP has been made to protect data in digital formats, right? Why? Because physical format exposure has not been very, I will say, obtrusive, or very, uh, you know it has not got sensationalized, right? And it's probably difficult to, you know physically steal any physical form of privacy information, right?
Yeah.
We never had
There
a
is
case where,
Yeah, there is a reason for that as well, sir. Like how much longer can you transport a physical thing? How much time it will take and all that. Digital is just you put a click and you are done. That's it.
yeah. So if I have
Yeah.
to export billions of, say, if my bank has my complete information, right, and today most of the banks do not have it in physical form. Okay.
Right.
So if
Right.
they want to know my name, my credit information, debit information, my taxation information, that is available at a click of a hand inside the bank's database and applications, right?
Yeah.
So it becomes natural responsibility for banks to protect it. If I go to hospital today, all my information is available digitally, right? So physical form of information is slowly going down, and I'll say 90% of the personal data today travels in the digital form. I will say 95% of. So government is saying, okay, let's first protect the digital format of personal information. So what is this personal information? Right now we come to Ashish's question. Like, love, would you like to comment what is personal data? What is the nature of personal data? What data can
Yeah.
be considered as personal?
I would say two categories, sir. PII and sensitive PII. Okay. PII related to somebody's, personal details like name, phone number, address, etc. Sensitive PII now actually becomes critical because here you actually try to understand what is the caste, what is the religion, what is the ethnic, religion or originality of a person, where you can actually divide entire groups into different communities and all. So sensitive PII definitely becomes critical. So two categories from my side, so PII and SPII.
Yeah. So also PHI, right?
Yes,
Why not
PHI
S,
definitely, definitely
right?
PHI. Yes,
Why not financial information, right? So
yes,
financial information somewhere becomes part of your PII. So PII, you can say, okay, name is not a sensitive PII. Okay, it's
yeah,
just an identifier. It's a personal data identifier. So
right,
generally, name becomes an identifier.
right,
Email. In certain nations, email is considered a PII information. Why? Because the moment I have my email exposed, anybody can reach out to me. I can get
right,
spoofed. I can get
right,
phished.
right.
Somewhere down the line today, email, at least in EU, is considered a PII. Okay.
Okay,
Then
okay,
next comes the telephone number, mobile number, right? Mobile number exposed, anybody can reach you, right? So if you see, we get so many unsolicited calls in India. Why? Because our mobile numbers are exposed.
Yeah.
Maybe the telecom companies themselves have exposed or sold our data, right, to different marketing companies. Okay, so today somebody wants to sell me a product, okay, and they go to, say, the mobile phone companies, and say, hey, can you sell your data to me? I want to reach out to these people. So till such time there was no regulation, well, Airtel will say, or Docomo will say, or anyone else. I'm not pointing out any particular, but I'm saying, since there was no regulation, even a lower level person who had access to this data, L1 or an L2 or an L3, without even organizational, explicit organizational yes, could steal that information and pass it on to marketing companies. And to be frank, that was what was happening till now, love, right? Till we
Yeah.
were in an era where it was not clearly defined, and even still it is not clearly defined. Why do you think we get so many unsolicited calls? From where does
Yes.
these
Yes.
marketing companies, these real estate agents get our numbers?
Yeah. They
Okay,
are getting
I
sold
have
on sold. I think with thousands of rupees, they're getting sold on dark web and all. Yeah. People are
no, no,
selling
no,
them.
no. You don't have to
Yeah.
even go to dark web.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
I will tell you the malpractices happening in our country, right?
Okay.
You go yourself and register with this well-known real estate application,
Okay.
right? And you, by non-explicitly, you give a consent. You don't come to know. You have non-explicitly given a consent that anybody can. So this is where first principle of privacy comes in. The consent has to be explicit. You know what is
Okay.
explicit consent? Explicit
Mm,
consent is coming, the flashing will be so explicit,
exactly.
say that
Exactly.
if you give your data to me, I will call you. That is
Yeah.
explicit.
Yeah. Very explicitly defined. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So GDPR lays is very strict, that you have to explicitly tell that what are you going to do with the data which you are collecting,
Yeah.
right? So that is first, and that's why we get so many unsolicited calls, and we are running behind TRAI to solve our problem of this breach, and that is why we see so many digital arrests, scam.
Yeah.
How does someone get my number? How does someone get to know how much money do I have in bank?
Yeah.
Right? That means somewhere down the line, my privacy information is going out and is being sold. I'll give
And
you a very
these
simple.
guys and these guys know your bank details also, sir. That's the most
I'll tell you.
important part to
Yeah,
look
that
at.
is
Yeah.
because the lower level employees, see, a
Yeah.
lot of banks, they outsource their L1, L2 functions to these BPOs.
Third
Okay.
parties.
Yes, third party BPOs, they outsource their basic customer support, right?
Right.
I'll tell you
Right.
this very, 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 and since I did forensics, so in this particular case, my wife needs to, do some changes on the bank side, okay? So she approaches the customer support, and she says that she has particular amount of FD in her account and she would like to break it and would like to do something about it, and she's not able to access the application on the mobile for some reasons, and she wants to do something about it. The moment she says this, right, immediately after, say, within 3 to 4 minutes, she gets a SMS, right,
Okay. Okay.
saying that you reached out to us regarding change of your username and password, blah blah blah. Click on this link to change it. Now that sounded very genuine, and she clicked on the link, so she got fished. The moment
Wow.
she clicked on the link, a beautiful SBI looking page opens up and it says username, password. So she enters username and password, and concurrently, somebody was trying to transact into her account
Oh my
concurrently.
God.
And she got a OTP. Now, the moment she got a OTP, she got another OTP which said, please supply us your OTP to change the password. So this is the
Okay.
tactics by which scammers. So you get confused, like when you're reading, okay, what is happening? So you give the if you are ignorant, you will give that OTP and transaction happened. Now, once this triggered, somehow SBI had a very, very beautiful risk management framework, and this transaction was caught by the risk management algorithm of SBI, and the transaction was not made through, we immediately call a call from SBI's risk management team and says that this transaction where you're trying to do, we said no. So said we have stopped and we have locked your account. Right. So this was good practice. But at the same time, I told them that look, SBI must have outsourced its customer support L1 functioning to some organization which is
Yeah.
involved with the scammers. Now, this is
Right.
very evident, right? That
Yeah.
means the scammer, so this particular call center employee was definitely passed this information to a scammer, and the
Yeah.
scammers have definitely honey trapped these L1 employees on the BPOs, right? And passing that information.
Yeah.
And majority of scams are happening because of this knowledge processing outside. And this is where, Tony, your question of data brokers comes in. That allows PIs being sold or compromised. So So SBI has to manage that third party risk. And it's SBI's accountability and responsibility. So if my wife would have lost that money, SBI was completely accountable for this particular action because I could have proven it. Right. So that there goes the comment. Right. So we will proceed with today's issues. Right. Then obligations for entities processing data. So first thing is protecting personal data in digital formats. That's very clear. So it's very mandated. So personal data in physical formats does not come under this particular act. Please understand that. Okay. Second is the obligations for entities processing data. Whosoever is processing my personal data, what are their obligations? So it tells very clearly what are the obligations of the entities who are going to process my privacy information or my digital personal data. Now, what is my digital personal data? That definition we are still waiting from the Data Protection Board or DPB, which has been formed, who will now lay out the regulations and say, define what is digital data.
Okay.
Is my geolocation a digital data or not? Are
Yeah.
my photographs digital data or not? Or
Yeah.
is it only my Aadhaar or my financial information? So that gap is still there. Okay.
Right. Right.
Say
Right.
say someone is say Google is collecting my location information. Okay. Can it share my location information with someone? Say
Yeah.
Google is collecting some cookie about what mobile phone brand I was searching on Google. Can it share it? Because we will get targeted advertisements, right?
Right.
So
Right.
these are the obligations which we need to. But obligations fine. Obligation is fine unless regulation becomes clear. Like EU is very clear. You cannot have
Yeah.
targeted marketing. And both Facebook and Google have faced huge fines. Okay. So first is protecting the digital data, personal data. So definition of digital personal data needs to be defined by the Data Protection Board.
Right.
Right. Last is balance privacy rights with lawful and necessary data processing. So now this is where again a loophole comes in this act is how do you balance privacy rights when you have not defined privacy very, very clearly? Okay. So we do not have definition of privacy right now in our legal jurisdiction. It is
Okay.
there. There are
Okay.
certain judgments by, so there was a famous judgment passed by Supreme Court based on which India's privacy things started, you know, building up. So it is, I think it is the Punna Swami judgment, right? So based on this, the India's privacy, talks started because Supreme Court gave a very, very, clear cut rulings. So how do you balance privacy rights with lawful and necessary data privacy? So what is privacy? Privacy is something which I do not want the whole world to know. If you look at the overall explanation, unless I give my consent, okay, I consider it private. What kind of clothes I wear, what kind of language do I speak in my house, how do I speak to my wife, my kids, okay, which hospital do I go to. It's my private information. I don't need to discuss that with you unless I give my consent. Okay, the concept of privacy is very, 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 very skewed in India. I go to airport and I'm watching something on my phone. My neighbor will try to peek in. We don't consider we don't consider privacy as, India is considered one of the most non-private countries, right?
Not your neighbor, not your neighbor. Even see people sitting behind you would also be looking
Yeah,
at
yeah.
your screen.
Okay, yeah. What
Yeah,
are you trying to do?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And I'm withdrawing some money from the ATM. Somebody would like to see how much balance do I have in my account.
Definitely, they will just try to peek in. Yeah, what
Yeah,
is
just
your
try
trade?
to how much money this guy has. Let me see. What is your interest, man? I'm a pretty poor man. What are you what are you trying to watch? The India privacy is not respected at all. Okay. There have been cases when I'm going with my kid and somebody just comes and tells, "Oh, what a cute kid." You don't have that right to touch my kid. Okay, you don't have right to take my picture without my consent, right? So these are basic privacy norms which we have somehow forgotten. It was there
Right,
in the earlier
right.
years. Today we have forgotten. We are so massive a country. We're so massive a population. We're followed. So these are the three contexts. Yeah, mind your own business does not work in India. Yeah, good Mujahid. Right. So three major objectives: protecting personal data in digital formats. Second is, what are the obligations of the entities or anyone who's processing your data? And third is, how do you balance privacy rights with lawful necessary processing? So these are the three major objectives. Right. So what happens is, you have to understand. So when you are now looking at this complete conundrum of and the fines are pretty huge, by the way, huh? So
Yeah.
DPDP as of now says fines up to 250 crores. Okay.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if I get a fine of 250 crores, I don't know where will I go. Right. So I have to so I that's why probably we'll have to. So there are a lot of, and it's not that you cannot do it. You have to understand a little bit of information security, a little bit of what is obfuscation, how to deal with data, and you're there. Okay. So what happens is, what is the scope and applicability? So that's very, very important. So the scope is, it covers data processing within India. That is one part, and globally, if tied to goods oblique offerings oblique services to individuals in India. So if you are a US company, you're offering some goods and services in India to me, you are applicable. So something
Right.
akin to GDPR. Something
Right.
akin to GDPR. So that
Yeah.
means anyone who is processing my data, you are applicable. Okay. Whether you are
Right.
in India or not. So that becomes very
Right.
important, right?
Right. Right.
Now, there is excludes personal oblique domestic data use and public data. Okay, so there will be certain personal oblique domestic data use, like your Aadhaar card. Your Aadhaar card information is personal oblique domestic data, or like your voter ID information. That may not be considered as your personal information because that's a
Right.
government. KYC will have certain, so your biometric will be considered as personal, but certain data which is used for domestic use, like for which maybe government is using it, right? So those regulations are still not clear, right? So we have to see what DPP tells. But if you look at generally, right, I will take it as my Aadhaar card as my private information, my PAN or my taxation information as my private information, my financial information as private information, my health information as privacy information, and my PII as my privacy information. And anything which exposes, like right now, I am streaming on StreamYard. Okay, it's responsibility of StreamYard that nobody gets access to this video unless I make it public. So since I've made it public, and you can now see the background of my house, it's my wish.
Yes.
So now it's no more a private privacy information
Right. Right.
because I have consented to show my face and show my background.
Right.
Right. So you have to understand what is personal oblique domestic data use and what is public data. So unless it is personal oblique domestic data use and public data, that does not will not come under the folds of DPDP. Right. So next would be, what are my rights as a data principal? So what is a data principal? You could have easily called subject, right? The whole
Yeah.
world calls data subject, right? Or whosoever's information you're collecting, but you made it complex and called it rights of data principals. So who is a data principal? A data principal is somebody's whose private information is in question, right? Or individual whose data is being collected. So there are four major, I will say, rights of a data subject or the data principle. First is access. Okay. If you have collected any information from me, I have the right to access that and see what you have collected.
Right.
I can request for it. So if I can request for it, any organization who's collecting this private information, does it have a process? Does it have an application or some means by which it can give that access? Right? So most of the companies who are collecting my private information now have to build a process of application or a way by which I can query them and ask them, hey, what is my personal information with you? That is first part, right?
Yeah.
Access. Second is, now you gave me access and I saw that you have collected wrong information about me. Okay. So I should have the right to correct it.
Yeah.
Second is, I might find it obtrusive and I can request you to delete it. I will say, I do not want my data with you. So that's a
Right.
very good right. Okay. So
Right.
you as a website have collected some information, published it, and I can now go and say, listen, this information about me is incorrect. You have to delete it.
Right.
Right. So there's the second right. And this will have a lot of consequences.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine I go on LinkedIn and I say, Love Johar has done this is that. Okay. Right. And I say something wrong about you on social media.
Right.
Right. And somehow it invades your privacy or digital
Yeah.
data, right?
Yeah.
Tomorrow, you can go and tell Facebook, please delete this. This is not my information. This is incorrect. So you see,
Yeah.
this becomes complex.
Right.
So that's
Right.
why we are waiting for regulation. We need to wait
Right.
for the regulation when it comes in,
Right.
right? Third is grievance redressal. So first is access, second is correction oblique erasure, and third is grievance redressal. So there has to be a mechanism to address complaints, right? Thank you, Williams. Thanks for your comment. This is cool. Thank you so much. Right. So, right. So
Yeah.
grievance redress. How? Okay, I want to reach out to Facebook and say, uh, you know, hey, my information is incorrect. I want you to solve this problem. So you know now you try to reach out. You can't reach out. Can you reach out to Google's support? It's so difficult. I've tried to reach out. Most of the time they are running their AI tools, and it's so difficult to reach out to someone human and say that, look, this problem is not working out for me. Can you help me out?
Yeah.
Okay,
Right. Right.
right. So what I'm trying to say is, all organization will have to now start spending money. It's
Yeah.
going to affect the budgets.
Yeah.
It's going to make a dent in their P&L statements, right?
Privacy cost. Cost budget. Privacy cost.
Privacy cost budget is going to increase, right? It's
Yeah.
so difficult to work in EU. I'm telling you, it's actually difficult. If you know about GDPR, it's difficult to work in EU, right? So three rights: access, correction, grievance, right? These are the three actions, right, which I have against you if you are collecting my data. And fourth is nomination rights. I will be able to tell that, listen, if I conk off today, okay, my information, I give the rights to my son or daughter or wife, and they can handle my data. They want to delete it, they can delete it. So you can nominate someone to deal with your data after you go away from this world. So this is my rights, right? Now, what are the responsibilities of the data fiduciaries? Now, when I first time heard this term, data fiduciaries, I said,
Yeah.
why did you make it so complex? You could have called it data collector or a data processor. Simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Indian lawmakers probably are looking at making things more complex, right? So 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 data fiduciaries are someone who are collecting your personal digital information, right?
Yeah.
So the first point is, obtain clear, informed, and unambiguous consent. That's very clear, right? So
Yeah.
consent becomes one of the major point. That means, if you are coming to my website, Protect Academy, and you are entering your name, email address, mobile number, I'm asking your address also. I might take your credit card information for buying the course. I have to obtain a very, very clear and unambiguous consent if I'm storing that information.
Yeah.
I might be processing that information and discarding it, but if I'm collecting it, I have to be very, very give you a very, very ask for a very, very clear consent, right?
Right.
But this is
Right.
what is this is a very small example. Now imagine if an insurance company wants to access your health information from the hospital to see what kind of diseases do you suffer from, or
Right.
a credit card company wants to access your CIBIL score or your credit information and wants to find out what is your credit information so that they can give you a credit card. Now in US, if you want to access someone's credit information, you need consent. But in India, we still don't have the concept of consent if you want to access my CIBIL score. Okay. Why should you be able to see how good or bad I am with my credit
Yeah.
unless I give you the consent? Because if I want a loan from you or a credit card from you, I will apply to you. You
Right.
do not have the right on your own to go check my CIBIL score. From somewhere you have come to know this guy is loaded. You go to CIBIL, check out my profile, or you go to CIBIL, pay CIBIL some good amount of money, and say, "Give me the credit score of all people above 600," and then start selling them your credit card or your credit services. Now, that's
Right.
invasion of privacy.
Because they are doing profiling, right?
That's profiling. That's
Yeah.
profiling, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, credit card companies, banks will oppose this like hell. So that's why we still don't have the regulations.
Right.
We have the act, but we don't have regulation. It's almost going to be 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Why? Because lot of industrial and lot of big companies will be opposing it, including the big houses of, I don't want to name them. Tomorrow they might become my client, so I can't name them. Right. So we don't want to antagonize anyone, but a business has its own challenges, right? Imagine some big company who has offered their telecom services to 60 million people of the world. How are they going to now handle this? For them it will
Wow.
be very, very, they will definitely reach out to the government and say, hey, listen, I can't do this, man, because
Yeah.
fine, to make this nation prosperous, I gave mobile phones to everybody, but now you're asking me to do something within 1 year. I can't do it, right? It
Right.
will take
Right.
me at least 3 to 4 years. So these will be issues, right? And we have to look at it pragmatically. We cannot just pass a draconian rule on day one,
Right.
right? Right. So first is consent, and second is ensure data protection with reasonable safeguards. So there has to be reasonable safeguards. You have to encrypt the data, obfuscate it. So you carry out a risk management, risk assessment, and you say, okay, what is the basic? I always say due diligence is very, very important whenever you are, doing anything in the perspective of legal or regulatory issues. So you do
Right.
a due diligence and you say, listen, we are collecting privacy information. Like in my company, we do collect privacy information. So I say, look, this this Excel sheet where you are storing this information needs to be encrypted and stored in a proper manner with an MFA. Now this much is more than enough. I know that,
Yeah. And then
right?
also dispose of after, let's say, 1 year or 2 year,
And
because
and and say and
it,
say, look, we this data is now 1 year old. We don't need it
yeah.
anymore. Please
Yeah.
discard it.
This
Please shred
dispose
it
it
with
off.
a crypto.
Yeah.
Please shred this information with a crypto key. Simple,
Right. Right.
right? And the best easiest way is have a company, a note on a company note sheet, okay, or a simple email that there will be a data destruction process on day so and so. Okay, any
Right.
data more than 1 year old, 2 year old, and lay down a simple policy that all privacy information will be burnt down or shredded after 3 months or 6 months, whatever your policy
Right.
is.
Right.
Lay down that
Right.
policy. It will become a good practice, right?
Right.
Third is notification, data breach notification. Okay, which right now Indian companies, do not adhere to. Okay, they adhere to it very reluctantly. Like look at Star Health. Okay, the information came. So whenever there's a breach, look, you have to understand in today's cyber world, you will get breached. It's just a matter of time when.
Yeah.
Either you are already breached, you don't
Yeah.
know, or
Yeah.
somebody has not. I'll tell you, because the internal threat process itself, somebody just might either steal your data, or somebody might just take your hard disk and do a mistake. So
Yeah.
it's just that you're just waiting for a disaster to happen, because there's
Yeah.
so many loopholes, right? And that's where due diligence comes in. Do what needs to be done. If there is a breach, notify it, because that will ensure that the data subjects secure themselves, and now they are aware that, okay, my data has got breached. I will start getting spoof calls, or I will
Right.
start getting, somebody will try to now phish me,
Right.
because if my data is exposed, then only somebody will try to reach me, right? So now I'm susceptible to a scam, right? And fourth is, any children's data has to be, you know the data fiduciary has to process the children's data with a extra caution. Now, what is that extra caution is not defined till now. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So that, so legal terms are always generally open ended. So it is, now it's saying, if you are collecting the children's data, then, uh, you know do it with a caution. Now, this is where I would like to tell organizations which are now finding it difficult to, you know what to do. I will say they should, best is to go and deploy ISO, privacy management. Uh, it is what, 27701.
27701. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I will say the best due diligence any company wants to do is just deploy ISO 27701.
Yeah.
Okay, it covers all the required, it covers all the requirements of how to manage privacy information.
Right.
Or worst case scenario, okay, you don't want to go for PIMS, implement GDPR.
Yeah.
You will do more than what is required, right?
Yeah.
So these are the responsibilities of, data fiduciaries, right? Now, who are these fiduciaries? That is another question. Who is a data collector or processor, right? And what are they supposed to do? Okay, so now, data fiduciaries are someone who are collecting massive amount of information, or I'll say good amount of information. So now, does it give me a little breather? I'm a small company, I have only 2000 odd information. Does it absolve me and does not make me a data fiduciary? That is first question. Who is a data fiduciary? So that baseline is still not, defined, well defined, right?
Yeah.
They have to carry out data, they have to appoint, so those who have to cover, quite a good amount of data, they have to appoint a data protection officer. That is the
Like
first.
telecom companies, like you mentioned. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like telecom companies, banks,
Banks. Yeah. Insurance
big
companies.
big
Yeah.
chain of hospitals, insurance
Yeah.
companies, right?
Yeah.
So they will have to appoint a data protection officer, right?
Right. Right.
Why not Zomato? Imagine Zomato
Definitely. Definitely.
has
Zomato, Swiggy. Yeah.
so much
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
Zomato, Swiggy, Lenskart, all
Yeah.
these big guys, they will have to, probably start working on that right now. So appoint
Right.
a data protection officer, and they have to appoint independent data auditors. So there has to be
Yeah.
someone who's responsible for data, and there is someone who should be independently able to audit your process for protecting this data. That is the first thing which a data fiduciary or data controller or processor needs to do. Second is, they will need to conduct a data protection impact assessments. Now,
Very important.
DPIA is
Very
very
important.
important, and DPIA is something which is a term which has come out from 27701,
Yeah.
right? And it's good to have a DPIA once every 3 months. Carry out a DPIA, and I think, love, I think we would probably be one of the four in the front of carrying out DPI, me and you, right?
Yeah.
We are already
Yeah.
ready with that, and
Yeah.
we've done some great work on that part. So, how do you want to protect, and what will be the impact assessments is something which you need to carry out,
Right.
and they have to adhere to the strict compliance standard. So that is what, 3 to 4 requirements: appoint a data protection officer, carry out independent audits, carry out data protection impact assessments, and adherence to the compliance. Okay, so that's something which is expected out of the organizations who are collecting that information. Second thing that they need to have is a governance mechanism. They need to have a strict governance mechanism which needs to be there within the organization. Third thing is, the government itself has to appoint a governance body to drive this act. Okay, so
Okay.
what government is doing is they are going to set up a data protection board, which it has already done, and then they will come out with the compliance requirements and policies which need, or penalties which need to have, right?
Okay.
And they will facilitate the process of this implementation of this act, and also facilitate organizations to work within the requirements of this particular act. So now if you look at RBI or NPCI, that provides the backend for your UPI data, right? So they have their frameworks to protect the information, right?
Right.
Similarly, if DPP comes in, it will probably give you some ways and means to you know uh, access the data, and probably provide with the requirements of DPDP Act, right?
Right.
Now, the major concern for any business would be penalties up to 250 crores. Now that is something that's a huge dent. What basis, how, that still needs to be seen,
Yeah.
right? There will be certain implications on trans-border data transfer. Okay, so trans-border data transfer will be allowed only after notification by the Indian government. So if Indian government says, okay, India's information can be shared with, say, Sri Lanka, or say Saudi Arabia, or say companies in UK or US with whom we have good relations, we can share the data with reasonable security and reasonable privacy management systems, right? Also, we need to be very, very, we live, if you look at our country, we are, surrounded by a lot of instabilities on our western front, on our northern front. So personal information will carry a lot of security implications will be there. So anything which affects the national security also, those will also come into the arrangement of cross border data agreements, right? Now, you also have to see certain exemptions. There will be certain organization which will get certain exemptions initially, right? So government bodies, of course, security, anything affecting security, law enforcement will have exemptions. uh, Organizations which are carrying out research and statistical purpose, say like when COVID broke out, so the ministry was collecting information about how many COVID cases. So that was maybe in a way infringement of privacy, but that was required for national security, because you would have
Yeah.
had so many deaths, right? So that was
Yeah.
data collection, so that might get exempted. you know Startups, I start a small startup, I have a small academy on the internet, I'm collecting some privacy information. Do I have to implement? I don't understand. Okay, so we are in security, we understand. People who are not in security, how will they understand? So maybe some kind of exemption will be provided to startups and smaller businesses who will start collecting personal information. So that has to be seen.
Right.
Now,
Right.
what I feel, there are going to be a lot of challenges, and that's why it has taken almost 2 years and regulations have not come up. DPB has been formed, but regulations are not clear, compliances are not clear. So I feel the challenges would be to lay down this regulation. That will be first challenge. uh, Second is, what will be the global implications? Companies right now are without any regulation collecting our information and processing it, right?
Right. Right.
Look at how Google shows us ads. At times I think Google thinks ahead of me. you
Yeah.
know like yesterday I was thinking ki, which is the next certification I should do. So you know what Google does? It shows me subsa.
Seriously.
Yep.
Wow.
So I feel somehow that Google's AI is now sentient and thinks ahead of me. Okay, it has profiled me, and it is thinking ahead of me. So I have been,
Could be
it has been
possible.
in
Could be
my, huh?
possible. Yeah. Could be
Yeah, yeah.
possible.
So yesterday I was thinking that I should do some certification. How do I scale up? I should look at enterprise risk management. And the next thing I see is a beautiful SAPSA ad, that
Wow.
do your SAPSA certification. So I said, cool. This is going to some other level, right?
Yeah.
Right. So see, privacy is going to be the next booming stuff, in our country, and it'll be wonderful to see what how happens, right?
Right.
And somewhere down the line, I feel love in our process in our organizations with cyber and with world going digital, there has to be a lot of trust and assurance. Okay, if
Yes.
I
Yes.
want to give my business to you, you have to prove, I have to have trust in you, and
Yes.
I need assurance from you that you are going to keep my business safe, you're going to
Right.
treat my data with fairness and integrity. And let me tell you, companies are struggling with it. You know how many calls we get in day out from startups and mid segment companies
Yeah.
saying that, hey, we got a big business, but they've given us this question and I don't know what the hell to do with this.
Yeah.
I don't have
Exactly.
information security policy, I don't have a privacy policy, I don't have this, I don't have that. What do I manage? So this is going to be challenging for a lot of organizations, right?
Right.
So
Right.
so what I feel is, DPDP is a good, uh, I'll say a very, very right, you know, act in the good direction. We need to see how it is implemented. Okay.
Right.
And it will definitely support our digital ecosystem, and it will safeguard the required privacy requirements on the network, right?
Yeah.
So this is what I feel, right? Yeah, William, you asked me a question, which tool we use. We use something called StreamYard. Okay, it's a good tool, it's a wonderful tool, right? And you can use StreamYard to uh, uh, stream it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, love. Any more stuff you would like to discuss about?
So yeah, a couple of things actually, sir. One thing would be for anybody who is watching this video, if you have a small and business and medium business scale company, and you're not sure about what you can do right now in terms of implementing DPDP for your organization, because certain things are clearly laid out, right, in terms of what you need to do, like having consent and all these details, what we discussed already in this video. So definitely get in touch with us so that if you have any questions, we can definitely have a one-to-one conversation with you, because sir, having one-to-one conversation with different companies, we can understand what they exactly need, because requirements will be different, right? So we can do that. So definitely you can reach out to us. And another thing is, if you really are struggling with the entire security posture of your organization, where we say that you're not sure what needs to be done next in order to improvise, then also we can help you out there, right?
So yeah, this comes the last part, our pitch, right? So the
Yeah.
pitch is, yeah, the pitch here is, we know that it's a complex part. So what I feel is, that's why I start with academy. To be frank, academy gives you reach to multiple people. This stream will reach to multiple people. Okay,
Right.
and if it
Right.
reaches even 10 business, organizations, and who understand they are under, so that will help them, right? So I feel that we are making small steps, but we are making pretty good progress in helping out organizations in implementing ISMS frameworks, privacy frameworks, BCDR frameworks, AI
Yeah.
management system frameworks. So I'm
Yeah.
very happy that we are able to help organizations at a very, very low cost,
Yeah.
uh, because specialization in this field is limited, and
Yes.
quickly implementing it and making the organization understand would probably be the right way to do. Okay. Second thing, which I want to bring out, information and cybersecurity is not expensive. Some
Exactly.
organizations, it
Yeah.
is not expensive, it is logical,
Yeah.
and it does not have to be expensive. So that thing, we want to move it out, that information and cybersecurity is something very expensive. No, it's not. Okay, it's a
Right.
habit, right?
Right. And one more thing, so I want to add, if anybody wants to consult with us, for example, if you really want to, if you're having a problem in terms of your policies, implementation of ISMS, or have you failed a stage one audit, if only consultation you want with us, you can do that at any point of time. We do not charge for consultations. And I actually want to clear that out, because people think that if they call us, we'll start, asking them on the day one, okay, okay, this call is being charged for $10,000. So it's not like that. So
No,
that's
we are
what I.
not. We are not. We are not lawyers. We are not
Yeah.
lawyers. Yeah, we
Yeah.
we only charge for our courses. We don't charge for telephone calls. We don't charge for initial discussions,
Yeah.
unless it's an engagement. How can we charge? So you can
Exactly.
always reach
I
out
just
to
want to.
us,
I just
discuss
want to.
your problems,
Yeah.
right? Right. Right. There's a
Feel
lot of
free to.
organizations who actually reach out to us. Obviously,
Yeah.
engagement, professional engagement start at some level, and that is the different part. But to discuss your problem statements, it's something which all organizations do. So we have to understand the problem statement of an organization, and that's
Yeah.
pretty much. what we do, right?
Because the thing is, if you are not doing that, then you are, actually sitting on a bomb, because you never
Yeah,
know what will explode. Yeah.
you're sitting on a landmine, right? Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
yeah,
That's the thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Right. Thank you, love. Any more questions? I don't see any more questions.
No, this good sessions. A lot of information packed session, I would say today. DPDP, you nailed it.
Yeah,
Actually, a lot of, but I think it will evolve gradually. What I feel right now,
it'll
and
take just 3 to 4 years, I
yeah,
guess.
it will gradually evolve, and we'll see more question and answers when the actually, it rolls out in the on the
No,
surface.
one
Yeah,
important thing which I saw from the information and important thing which I saw from MIT and information ministry is don't wait for the regulations.
definitely. They said that in the first push only. Yeah, they said
They
that.
said please implement,
You start
and then
implementing.
yeah, you
Yeah,
start implementing in your own thing. There are so many frameworks available. Implement
right.
27701. What's
Yeah,
wrong, right?
right,
It's a good practice. Okay, so
right,
that's what I feel, that push your GRC people who are sitting to implement 27701. You don't have to spend any money to implement 27701. It's just a
right,
550 rupees standard on BIS website.
right,
Download it and implement it. The only thing is
right.
your GRC professional should be mature enough to interpret the standard, how what to do about
Yeah,
it.
yeah, right.
Right, love. Then this is a good session. DPTP. I was waiting for quite some time to speak on DPTP. Right. So I
Right.
hope this helps. And this is streamed live on YouTube and LinkedIn. So have a good day, great day, and see you there.